morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Wednesday, February 15th, 2023 meeting of the Lake Havasu City Planning and Zoning Commission. If you'd please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And Madam Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Susanna Ballard. David Diaz.
Here.
Joan DeZero.
Here.
Paul Ayer.
Here.
Gabrielle Medley.
Here.
Tiffany Wilson.
Here.
Dane Hatch. Matthew Mitchell.
Here.
Lonnie Stevenson.
Here.
And Jim Harris.
Here. Mr. Mitchell, would you please come forward and fill the vacancy on the Diaz today? All right, correspondence and announcements. Mr. Morris.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, thank you very much. Just one announcement. Last night, the City Council heard the Delta Drive General Plan Amendment and rezone. They approved the General Plan Amendment, but the rezone to PD did not. It failed for a lack of motion. So that item, the rezone did not go through. So that concludes staff's.
Which item was that again?
That was Delta Drive. It was for a multiple family district on McCulloch in Delta, right there by Chemehueve. A commercial property that they asked to be rezoned to high density residential.
Anything else?
Just one thing, the reason I think they were looking for, the reason it didn't get a motion was I think they were concerned about a little too much density. They asked for that almost double the density. So I think the commission or the city council was a little concerned about the density overall. But
Okay.
I have nothing else to add.
All right, thank you. Minutes of the last meeting. Are there any additions?
Chairman, may I add
Mr.
something?
Diaz.
So I was at that meeting from start to finish, and that's the 87 unit apartment complex. But can I make a motion that we do a study on the traffic impact and the parking requirements that came up at the end of the meeting, and it came to the planning and zoning and make a motion to do that. You guys would do a study on it, and then it would go to city council to look at that study. So I'd like to make a motion to do a study on our parking requirements. Are they working? Are they not working? And give us some data to see if what we've been doing over the years is working.
Ms. Geary?
Yeah, no, you can't do that here. I mean, this is just staff announcements, so this is the time that staff would give you announcements, and you're certainly welcome to ask questions about those announcements, but we can't make motions or anything or have discussion about that at this time. It is something that you can do during a future agenda item, and maybe at that point in time, we can discuss a little bit about what was requested by the city council last night, but just not here.
But at this meeting, can we do it later on, or do you saying
During
not?
future agenda items of
Okay,
this
thank
meeting.
you. Appreciate
this
it.
meeting.
Thank you. Thanks.
All right, minutes of the last meeting. Are there any additions, corrections, deletions by commissioners? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve the minutes as submitted.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion by Ms. Zuro and a second by Ms. Wilson to approve the minutes as written. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, let's go ahead and place our votes.
Mr. Diaz.
Yes.
Ms. DeZero.
Yes.
Mr. Lear.
Yes.
Ms. Medley.
Yes.
Ms. Wilson.
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell.
Yes.
And Mr. Harris.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
All right, moving on to the public hearing. Let me first state that this is a public hearing and there is a structured order to this proceeding. The city staff will present each item. There will be time for the commission to ask questions of the staff, and then the applicant will have the opportunity to present their case to the commission. That being done, we will then open the proceeding to the public for their questions and input. I would ask that anyone of the public that wishes to speak limit their trips to the podium and microphone to one only, keep all comments to less than 3 minutes, and to stay on point and not discuss subject matter that is not pertinent to the decision being considered here today. After public testimony is taken, I will then close the public hearing and bring the motion back to the table for city staff's recommendation, discussion amongst the commission, and eventually a motion to approve or disapprove. The first item on today's agenda is ID 23-3654, and that is a request for a preliminary subdivision plat for Site 5 townhouses at 2820 Palisades Drive. This is tract 2226, Block 2, Lot 15, creating a 4-unit residential townhouse subdivision in the residential limited multifamily R3 district. Mr. Kearns, your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The subject property is located between Simitian Drive and Avalon Avenue. The properties to the north, east, west are zoned residential limited multifamily and developed for residential uses. The properties to the south are zoned limited commercial North Kiowa overlay district and are a mixture of developed and undeveloped commercial lots. The site is currently vacant, but building permits have been submitted and design review is underway. The proposed townhouse plat will allow the units to be individually owned, and they will be part of an association along with the common portions of the development. The project includes 2 one-bedroom residential units and 2 two-bedroom residential units with attached garages and 2 uncovered parking spaces. Parcel A is an easement for ingress and egress, maintenance and operation of utilities, sewage, drainage, and refuse collection, and emergency vehicles. The project will have a property owners association to manage and maintain the association improvements. Parcel A will be privately owned, and the water and wastewater within the subdivision will be installed and maintained by the association. And the applicant this concludes staff's presentation. The applicant's also available for questions.
Any questions of staff by the commission? Hearing none, is the applicant present? Please state your name for the record.
Lee Johnson, APL Surveying. Good morning, Commission. Staff explained the project right. It's 2 two-bedroom units and 2 one-bedroom units, and each of the units have 40-foot deep RV garages attached to them. And this project is currently at the beginning stage of construction. And this process just allows the individual units to be sold to individuals instead of being one large rental property. Here, if you have any questions.
Any questions of the applicant by commissioners? Okay, thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Commissioners.
All right, this is a public hearing, and I will now open it up to the public. Is there anybody that wishes to speak on this item, either pro or con? Anybody at all? Seeing none, I will go ahead and close the public hearing portion and bring it back to the table for staff's recommendations.
Based on the findings, the Development Review Committee recommends approval of Land Use Action 233654, a preliminary subdivision plat for Site 5 townhouses at 2820 Palisades Drive, Tract 2226, Block 2, Lot 15, creating a 4-unit residential townhouse subdivision in the residential limited multifamily district.
Okay, we are at the table for discussion and or a motion by commissioners. Anybody? Ms. Wilson?
I move to approve Land Use Action 233654, a preliminary subdivision plat for Site 5 townhouses at 2820 Palisades Drive, Tract 2226, Block 2, Lot 15, creating a 4-unit residential townhouse subdivision in the residential limited multifamily R3 district.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
So we have a motion by Ms. Wilson and a second by Ms. Zuro to approve item 23-3654 with staff's recommendations. Any further discussion on the motion, commissioners? Hearing none, let's call for the question.
Mr. Diaz?
Yes.
Mr. Zero?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Ms. Medley?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
And Chairman Harris.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Congratulations and good luck. All right, the next item on today's agenda is ID 23-3656. This is a request for a preliminary subdivision plat for Oro Estates Townhouses at 3429 Oro Grande Boulevard, Tract 2217, Block 6, Lot 9, creating a 3-unit residential townhouse subdivision in the residential limited multifamily, which is R3 district. Mr. Kearns again.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The subject property is located on Oro Grande between Buena Vista and Sunny Ridge Drive. The properties to the north and south are zoned residential limited multifamily district and developed for residential uses. The properties to the west is zoned residential single-family district and developed with an elementary school. The property to the east is zoned limited commercial district and is developed into a preschool. The site has been recently developed into a 3-unit multifamily complex. The proposed townhouse plat will allow the units to be individually owned, and they will be part of an association along with the common portions of the development. The project includes 3 two-bedroom residential units with attached garages and 1 uncovered parking space. Parcel A, an easement for ingress, egress, maintenance and operation of utilities, sewage, drainage, refuse collection, and emergency vehicles. The project will have a property owners association to manage and maintain the association improvements. Parcel A will be privately owned, and the water and wastewater within the subdivision will be installed and maintained by the association. This concludes staff's presentation, and the applicant is available.
Any questions of staff by commissioners? Hearing none, is the applicant present? Please state your name again for the record.
Lee Johnson, APL Surveying. Like staff presented, 3 units on this project. Each one of them are 2-bedroom. There's attached 2-car garages for each unit. And once again, this has just changed the way that ownership can be held for these units. Here for any questions if you have any.
Any questions of the applicant, commissioners? Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, commissioners.
All right, this is a public hearing on this item. If there is anybody that wishes to speak, either pro or con, please come forward. Seeing none, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing portion and bring it back to the table again for staff's recommendations.
Based on the findings, the Development Review Committee recommends approval of Land Use Action 233656, a preliminary subdivision plat for Oro Estates Townhouses at 3429 Oro Grande Boulevard, Tract 2217, Block 6, Lot 9, creating a 3-unit residential townhouse subdivision in the residential limited multifamily district.
All right, we are at the table for discussion and or a motion, commissioners. Anybody?
Chairman,
Mr. Diaz.
I move to approve land use action number 23-3656, the preliminary subdivision plat for Oro Estates Townhouses at 3429 Oro Grande Boulevard, Tract 2217, Block 6, Lot 9, creating a 3-unit residential townhouse subdivision in the residential limited multifamily R3 district.
Thank you, Mr. Diaz. We are at the table for.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Diaz, a second by Ms. Medley to approve item number 23-3656 with staff's recommendations. Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, let's go ahead and call for the question.
Mr. Diaz?
Yes.
Mr. Zero?
Yes.
Mr. Lair?
Yes.
Ms. Medley?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Chairman Harris?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Congratulations. The next and last item on today's agenda is ID number 23-3650. This is a request for approval of a preliminary subdivision plat for Trinity at Havasu Foothills Estates, tracts 2391, 2411, and 2412, located at 6000 Cherry Tree Boulevard. Assessor's parcel numbers 113-01-034 and 113-01-044, creating 68 residential lots in the residential estates / planned development R-E/PD district. Mr. Morris, your presentation, please.
Oh, there we go. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, thank you so much. Just a little bit of background information about Foothills Estates overall before we get into this item. In 2000, the area was annexed and a development agreement was entered into. In 2003, there was a specific plan that established a residential total of 697 units for residential, a commercial element, and a school site. In 2006, there was a general development plan that was created, and it included a town center, some home sites, and a park. And then in 2016, there was a 100-foot right-of-way that got removed that was part of a bypass that never came to fruition. And the development plan was updated, relocated the school to the third phase, so future phase, and it revised the parks a little bit. And then in 2017, there was some zoning revisions that changed some of the C1 commercial to mixed-use general, and changed the mixed-use neighborhood zoning to mixed-use general, and then changed some C1 zoning commercial to RE. And originally in 2000, there was a development agreement. That development agreement had a time frame for expiration, and so it has passed that time frame. So the development agreement back in 2000 is no longer valid. It's been expired. So just a little bit of background for the Foothills overall. So here's the area map. The subject property is located just at the north end of Cherry Tree Boulevard in the Havasu Foothills Estates development. It totals just over 40 acres, and it's been rough graded. A wash abuts the property to the south. The property and the abutting properties to the west, south, and east are zoned residential estates planned development, that's REPD, and are vacant. The city limits abut the northern edge of the property. The entire Havasu Foothills Estates planned development is currently entitled to a total of 697 residential units. To date, 607 lots have been planned or platted. This project includes 68 residential lots to be completed in 3 phases. So that results in a balance of 22 lots available for the current Havasu Foothills Estates entitlement. The preliminary plat is shown here.
Excuse me a second.
Yes.
Let's back up on those numbers. I missed something there. You said you've got permitted 200, or the original agreement was 697,
Correct.
and there's currently 607 there,
607 lots have been planned or platted, right?
leaving how many left?
Well, then there's these 68 that are coming before you today. So after that, that would leave 22 lots.
Okay.
So,
I didn't catch the
Okay.
difference there.
all right.
Thank you. Sorry for interrupting.
So after if these 68 lots are approved, then that means 22 lots are all that remain for the balance.
Available to develop.
Of those 697. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. The property is zoned REPD and is proposed to meet all the residential estates, the RE development standards. They're not asking for any exceptions. An all-weather crossing, wash crossing, will connect the development to the end of Cherry Tree Boulevard. Public streets with city sewer and water infrastructure are proposed. 2 private lift stations are also planned and will be the subject of a development agreement to outline maintenance responsibilities for those improvements when the final plats are reviewed. The preliminary plat also shows future phases to the west. Here it's shown as 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And the location of a second all-weather crossing down at Cherry Tree Boulevard and Avenida Tierra Vista. The future public street is a proposed 84-foot wide right-of-way providing direct connection through Arizona State Trust land to existing city right-of-way in the Lodestar Drive area. The proposed street is shown to establish a location for the second connection to Havasu Foothills Estates. It is not part of this preliminary plat submittal. The future phases and right-of-way connection through state trust land will require an amended or new planned development rezone and the development agreement before they are developed. That would be with the part of phase 3 of the project. That concludes staff's presentation. Open to any questions, and the applicant is also here. Thank you.
Okay, questions of staff by commissioners, and I'm going to start. Let's go to the access issue. Based on what we already have approved, there is no requirement for additional access, correct?
That's correct. The current 697 units is based on the single access at this point.
I just want to make that clarification. It was sufficient at the time and still is. Okay. Any other questions by commissioners of staff? Okay, hearing none. Is the applicant present? Would you like to make a presentation? Okay, please come forward, state your name for the record.
Peter Furlow, Rose Law Group. Thank you, Luke. It was a good presentation. You took a lot of what I was going to say, actually. So don't want to repeat what he just went over. Just wanted to remind you the 697, what's being discussed today is just the additional lots that you see on the preliminary plat. It's nothing that's going west and nothing over that. Anything with that would, like Luke said, require a PD amendment, which would come back here. It'd require a neighborhood meeting. It's a lengthier process. There'd be notice to the public. I'm happy to discuss with anybody here. I can give you my contact information to go over any of those plans at that time. And that would also go to council as well. Yeah, so just with the additional of the 68 residential lots is all that's being discussed. You gave the background. And so, yeah, I'm just happy to answer any questions. And if you need me to respond to any of the legal aspects, I'll be here. So thank you.
Okay, a couple of things. First, let's spell your name for the record.
Yep, Peter, and then Furlow, Furlow.
Okay. All right, Peter, or Mr. Furlow, I've got a couple of questions here. The map that is shown on the screen above, the 68 lots that you're coming for are only in areas 1, 2, or blocks 1, 2, and 3?
Correct.
These other blocks that are located on the side there, those are not planned to be developed at this time.
Correct.
Those are something that maybe at some point in the future you might try to achieve.
Correct. With neighborhood outreach, we'd be happy to get feedback as well as from staff.
Okay, that's all the clarification that I wanted. Anybody else have questions of the
I have a
applicant?
question.
Mr. Diaz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Here on these, the map is, as the chairman was talking about, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Has there been any grading or infrastructure in those started in that area?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Okay.
I can.
Now, wait a minute, let's hold on here. None of that area is platted or graded?
Great, yes. Okay, thank you. You're welcome. Sorry. You need to drive up there.
Please, let the applicant speak. We'll get to you guys.
Sorry, my name is Britt Wolf. I'm with Apex
All right.
West.
Need your name. I need your name for the record, please.
Britt Wolf of Apex West.
Okay.
I can speak to the
Mr.
grading.
Wolf.
Yes, sir. The property has been mass graded, the entire site as permitted with the city.
Nothing has been completed, if you will.
Correct. There's been no completion.
It's just a mass grading, and you guys did that basically on an at-risk basis.
Yes, sir.
Without this approval.
Correct.
Okay, which is perfectly legal. Any other questions of the applicant? All right, I'm going to open it up to the public. Again, one trip to the podium, and if there's anybody that wishes to speak either pro or con, please come to the podium and state your name for the record.
Hi, Dawn Kirk, K-I-R-K. Couple things. Mr. Diaz asked if any of the other phases, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, are in the planning stage or something to that effect. I'd like to point out that Trinity has already put in an application for another phase, so that's not true.
Let's clarify that with staff.
Sure.
Has there been another application submitted for the additional lots that we're talking about?
Are we talking about the future phases here?
Yes.
4 through 8? No, we have no application for any future phases there. The only thing that we have at this point is a rough grading, at-risk grading for the entire property, which was alluded to that, yes, some mass grading has gone on, but there's no submittal for anything for phases 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8, as shown on this track.
You
So
don't
in
have a
essence-
permit that was submitted on January 30th for 23 lots? Because I think I have a copy of it here someplace.
That's not in this
There's
project.
a different area that's up here.
Right, one of the
was-
future
It
phases.
was a totally different phase, totally different project. What we're talking about here, none of these phases 4 through 8 have any sort of permits for them other than the rough grading for the whole site.
Okay, well, I disagree. I have the paperwork. I just can't find it right now because I'm shuffling because I'm so upset about this. But yeah, there's one that's been, the application was submitted. I mean, Trinity should be able to answer that. You guys submitted another application, right?
I'm sorry, you need to address just the board.
Sorry.
The board can ask questions of the audience, but you have to just direct it toward the board. Thank you.
Okay. So it has the same parcel number, same tract number. So I'm still confused about that. So if it's not there in that parcel number, then where would it be? Another thing.
Excuse me. Mr. Morris, would you like to clarify?
I think there was a few months ago, maybe 6 months or so ago, there was a preliminary plat submitted, I think, for this phase up here for 16 or so lots. But nothing's come of it. It's in preliminary plat. I don't know if the
For
project's
which area?
ongoing. For the area north, I mean, showing on the map here.
The 22 lots,
Yeah, about 22 lots, I believe.
which is owned by a different owner.
Different part, yep. different
And I'm
part.
going to interrupt you, Ms. Kirk, and let Mr. Tuneman speak here for a second.
Jeff Tuneman, Development Services Director. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, that application is for, as Luke's saying, it was 22, 23 lots, I believe, and then they revised it maybe back to 16. It's an area known as the Villas, and it's owned by a different entity than Apex West.
Totally different project.
Totally different area. Those lots are also included in that 697 for the original phase of Havasu Foothills Estates.
Chairman, Mr. Toomey?
Ms. Wilson,
Is that 607, is that right? Is that 22 included in that 607?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that is included in the whole 697 lots.
it's not in the 607, but it's in the 697, the total that's permitted.
It's part of that 607, and then Apex West is asking for 68, and then there'll be a remaining 22 to get to that 697.
And that takes up the total of the 697 that are allowed.
Correct, and then that's why the future phases to the west have to come back for either a PD rezone or basically a PD rezone or a PD amendment. Anything above
If
the
they ever
697.
choose to do that.
If they ever choose to do that, correct.
Okay. I'm sorry, Ms. Kirk.
Respectfully.
Just wanted to get some clarification.
Sure. Let's look at application number 23-014-00001, dated 1/30 of 23. It's not the Villas. It says it's APX West. Property address, 6000 Cherry Tree Boulevard. Parcel number is the same parcel number, 113-01034, for 23 additional lots. So 23 is more than 22. So, yeah, I'm just curious why they're not being forthright. So, but, given that they were discovered putting in infrastructure a few weeks back, it doesn't surprise me. Another question. Where's the parcel for the school? Where is it?
I'm going to let Mr. Morris answer that.
The school parcel, per the revised development, per the revised ordinances, PD ordinance, is going to be on phase 3. Phase 3 there's not been a planned development rezone that's going to require any additional subdivisions above the lots above the 697, then will require a new planned development or a rezone, and will include the things about the school. At this point, we've preliminarily reached out to the schools, and they're not really typically interested in new schools, but that's something we will get a confirmation on when we go through the phase, the PD for the rezone for phase 3 of the project. Anything in excess of 697 lots. So that will be dealt with at that time. There will also be a development agreement we're anticipating that will go along with that phase 3, outlining the responsibilities of the city and the developer for things like that. Thank you.
With all due respect, this is phase 3. Phase 3 encompasses that 150 acres. So again, if the Planning Commission recommends that this go forward to the City Council, again, the Planning Department is shirking its responsibilities and kicking the can down the road. And my fear is that the school, just like the park, just like the fire station, just like the town center, is going to get pushed by the wayside and lost in the shuffle of the paperwork that's being presented by Trinity. And that's exactly what they're doing by breaking this up. They're going to paper you guys like crazy, and so you lose sight of what the general plan was. So we were sold certain things when we were deciding to buy up there. A school, a park, a bypass. What am I missing, guys? The town center. And what, the fire station? The fire station. And nothing has been done. Instead, that whole community has been fractured, and you guys have lost sight of what the general plan was. So this is phase 3, and I want to know where the school site is. Even if the school site is not in this particular one, where is it in the rest of the plot map? It's not there, because you know what? They have no intention of putting a school up there. So, you know, the community feels betrayed right now. And I'm just very disappointed. Hold on, I got a couple more things. Just touching on that grading at risk permit. I cannot understand how the city can give a developer a permit to go ahead and grade hundreds of lots that do not conform to the zoning restrictions. I can't express to you enough the debilitating effect that that has on the community. It basically sends out a message to the community that the rules don't matter and that the developer can
Please
do basically
continue.
everything that they want to do. So it's bad for the community. Basically, the community feels like it's a done deal. What can we do about it? Because if they didn't feel like that, trust me, there'd be 300 people here. But a lot of people in my neighborhood feel like it's already done because you guys have given them carte blanche to do whatever they want. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Kirk. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak? Please state your name for the record.
Good morning. My name is Emiliano Torres, and I live up in the foothills.
I'm sorry, what was your last name again?
Torres,
Thank you.
Torres. To follow up on the community concern over the development, the state requires we have a community get-together prior to a development being built. There was one about 3 or 4 months ago, but that's different from this one. Again, the fracturing of the development, so we can have a community meeting for one development, but then present it to you as a different development. There is no connection to Cherry Tree is the only avenue for this development and all the other developments up in that area. There is no consideration for any other a way to approach this. Now, there has been discussion of Lodestar, Yazoo, and a couple of other streets, but those people haven't been notified that they're going to have a major development coming up through their residential neighborhood. And again, you're planners. This is the thing you're supposed to do. You're supposed to be planning, not just reacting. Out on the hallway, you have the Fire Department Operational Independence Study. I'm glad you have it. If you look at the back of it, the critical need is firehouse number 7. Where's firehouse number 7? Right now, I believe it's on Sloop and McCullough, downhill from this area. Fire trucks have a difficult time going uphill. Secondary, the only other likely access is a fire road on the backside of the foothills. On any given day, that fire emergency access is blocked by construction and by people who like to hike the area and park right in front of the padlocks. Just last night, the city approved a water booster pump for that community because it lacks water pressure. Do we now, by approving this development, now put ourselves behind the 8 ball again for lack of water pressure. Again, last night, Councilmember Campbell mentioned that we need to revisit, as Mr. Diaz mentioned earlier, we need to address the parking issue. The parking issue, or the guidelines that the city use, are a statewide guideline, not particular to this community. And this community is known for our trailers, our side-by-sides, our RVs. The statewide guideline is not appropriate, and you're going to have people parking all over the streets. I would have suggested, if nothing else, allow the community to meet with the developer as the state requires prior to a development. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Torres. Please come forward, state your name for the record.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Roger Wickline. That's Wickline. I would like to remind the Commission that in the planning document that was approved by the Council in 2014 regarding service levels, that's GM.1.1C, allowing development in areas that can be reasonably serviced by police, fire, and emergency response services without negatively impacting service levels or increasing cost for current users. That's in a document that Council approved, back in 2014. Fire response to the foothills is from Station 4. Station 4 is over 4 miles from my home. If Station 4 would happen to be in service, then we would get response from Station 1 or 3, which are over 5 miles away. Response time already over accepted norms, and we're required to install fire sprinklers in our homes at our expanse as a result of the delayed response time. I would ask the Commission to not recommend approval to the Council unless these issues of access and fire response times is completed and in place first. I'd also like to ask the Chairman, Mr. Harris, to recuse himself from this project as he is a prominent home builder in the foothills and stands to benefit financially from the approval of this project. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Morning, Commissioners. My name is Joe Nevarez, Nevarez, and like a lot of people in here, a resident of the foothills. My concern is a couple of them. First off, the second ingress egress. As we've complained to the council on a couple times at the council meetings, we're another island out there, just like the island out there on the water. One way in, one way out. As a perfect example, last September during Labor Day weekend, there was a crash. A gentleman in his off-road vehicle decided to go extremely fast into the curves, crashed into a wall. They could not get into our development for an hour and a half because both sides, with the median being in place, were blocked. Emergency vehicles on one side blocking the downbound lanes, more emergency vehicles and patient care being done in the upbound lanes. If you want to see them, I've got pictures available for you to show you. That's an extreme concern. The council, from what I understand, had mentioned there needs to be a second road in when they approve this development. You want to disrupt these folks on Lodestar? Are you kidding me? Have you gone out and looked at Lodestar? That's like driving up an alleyway, that street's so small. And now you want to take in the future, not now, but in the future, you want to take another 90 homes. You double that by 2 vehicles per home. That's 180 vehicles. How many trips a day is the average for the home? 4 trips? That's a lot of cars coming in and out of there. You can't say that there's no impact on it. There should be a proper traffic study done by the city, by the engineering department. A traffic study would probably show you there would be 2 more streets that's needed to get in and out of that place. Secondly, at the bottom of the map, where there's supposed to be the wash between the residents and Cherry Tree, is that going to remain a wash? Or are they going to try and slip in more storage units like they did on one corner, understanding it's a mixed-use development, so it was approved Again, we didn't realize there's going to be storage units stuffed up inside of our nice residential lots. So my concern would be is it looks like railroad tracks right there near the bottom corner. I'm not sure what those are. Would anybody be able to tell us what that, I mean, is that just something to deal with the surveyor's marks? Is that what those are? Or is that something where it's lots that are actually planned out?
That's probably the 22 lots that they have a permit approval for.
Please, nothing from the audience.
Would someone be able to answer that question?
State your question again, please.
Right here at the bottom of the map, it looks right there. What is that? I'm not sure. Is that lots? Is that something in the future? Or is that just surveyor's marks? I mean, I have no idea.
It looks like an easement to me.
An easement?
It looks like an easement to me, but
Okay.
I'm not the surveyor.
Would somebody from APX or surveyors be able to answer that question for us?
Maybe the developer can when he comes up to rebut some of these marks. Not right now.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in the audience who wishes to speak on this item? Please come forward, state your name for the record.
Thank you. My name is Keith Turner, Keith. I'm a resident of the Foothills Estates, and I apologize. Yesterday's wind has kicked up my allergies, something fierce, so kind of bear with me. If
You're not
don't
alone.
I've listened to my neighbors. I've read the staff report, and I'm trying to read the tea leaves. And quite frankly, I think there's a probability that because of the 68 and what's already available up there, you're going to approve this. And the reason that I'm standing here is because this is not what APX is proposing. It's not what they've told us they're proposing. It's the camel's nose coming into the tent. This is a copy of a slide that they presented at a public meeting describing what they're proposing. In fact, the title of this slide is What We Are Proposing. It begins by saying there's, at that time, 92 lots currently available. I think that was the difference between what had then been approved out of the 697 and the 697. They say the original plan development was 697. Then they say, we are proposing 200 additional residential units for a total of 897 for the total development. But there's more. They then go on and say, in addition, we're going to ask approval for 45 townhomes. They call them luxury RV garage townhomes. Luxury RV garages do not belong in the same sentence. I'm sorry, but there is no such thing. But in any event, what that amounts to is what APX is actually proposing is almost 340 additional houses up in that area. If you approve this 68, where we are going to be is they have rough graded the entire project. They've started installing infrastructure, and now they're going to be able to start building 68 homes. When are we going to say enough is enough? The next time we come here and they ask for a zoning review or whatever thing else they're going to have to do, you're going to look around up there and say, wait a minute, it's all graded. They've started building. Shouldn't we just go ahead and approve what's left? And I just want to remind you, and the reason I'm speaking is 68 homes is not what they're asking for. It's what's on your agenda today, and I understand that. But you need to understand and appreciate this is not APX's plan. There's no mention of 68 homes on their slide entitled What We Are Proposing. Keep that in mind if you don't mind. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else that wishes to speak on this item? Please come forward, state your name for the record.
My name's Tom Boyd. I attended the meeting that Keith just brought up, and at that meeting, I asked about the traffic report, and we were promised access to the traffic report because we were assured that everything's fine on the segments, the roadway segments of Cherry Tree. And I asked, well, what about the intersection of Cherry Tree and McCulloch? It's not very good right now. What happens when we put an extra 300 lots up there? Well, we were promised, well, we'll send out the traffic report. It's been months and we've never seen the traffic report. The other issue about traffic is that the whole Foothills area was based on a second access, and that second access was the bypass. That bypass is gone. And how does it change traffic? Well, the bypass brought traffic in, it would take traffic out. What's the net effect? No one knows. I guarantee the city staff doesn't know when they go to approve the next 300 lots up here what the traffic's going to be. We're going to end up being the island. We're going to end up being the Riviera. The Foothills, we're going to have one way in, one way out, and we just keep adding lots, and no one is looking at the impacts. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else who wishes to speak on this item? Anybody at all? Hearing none, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing portion of this meeting. Bring it back to the table for staff's recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Based on the findings, the Development Review Committee recommends approval of Land Use Action 233650, a preliminary subdivision plat for Trinity at Havasu Estates, tracts 2391, 2411, and 2412, located at 6000 Cherry Tree Boulevard, APNs 113-01-034 and 113-01-044, creating 68 residential lots in the Residential Estates Planned Development REPD District. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morris. We are now at the table for discussion and/or a motion, and I'm going to start. First off, let me clarify, as a general contractor and a builder, I do not have any ownership or financial interest in this project here today. None whatsoever, no relationship, whatever, and I'm not going to take questions. Secondly, this development was only intended for 697 lots. They are not exceeding that at this point, and the development agreement states that that's all that they can have. That's all I'm willing to give them. I think, we're not exceeding that here today. And I think their plans for the future are pretty ambitious and pretty risky. There's a whole different process for that when it comes time. And I don't see it happening myself personally, but that's going to be up to you guys. When this comes before the commission and the city in the future for any of their developments, you need to stand up and voice your opinions just like you're doing today. And I think they will be listened to and heard, because this development was only designed for 697 lots. And having said that, we are here at the table for discussion by commissioners. Ms. Zero.
I certainly understand the egress issue. As Chairman Harris said, they already have approved, there's been approval previous planning commissions and the council for 697 homes, and this appears to still stay within what has been approved. We cannot look at what may be down the future. We are only tasked with looking at what is before us each and every time we come to this meeting and make an evaluation based on, does this comply with the general plan? Is this apply with what's been approved before? Those are the things we're having to look at. And certainly, I don't know a developer in town, and I've met several of them, that aren't looking for the future. That's what they do. They build, they make, that's where they make their money. So there's always going to be builders with plans that they hope will come about. Whether they get approved or not will be determined at the time. I do think that it's a reasonable thing that we look at a traffic study, as Commissioner Diaz said, before possibly any further building in that area comes up to us. That in order for us to be able to look at something like that, we need to look and see if there's additional above what's already been approved and what's been, per the previous traffic study evidently has said 697, the one road is okay. Then I think at that point, we do need to look at something for anything additional. And I think that's a reasonable request. We cannot do that from here, is my understanding, because that's money that would have to come from the council, but we could make a recommendation to the council for that.
Typically,
So
those traffic studies things like that are done by the developer and required by the city at the time of a proposed application.
Okay, good.
So, Mr. Lear.
Mr. Chairman, so were all the conditions, from 2016 plan development for the 697, were they all complied with to date?
I believe they are. There's was a condition for parks. There are 2 small parks that were created there that meet the development, the rezoning application. There's also the school site was a part of the original PD, and again, that's been moved to the 3rd phase. So if they're going to do anything more than 697, and then we're considered that to be the 3rd phase. And so anything in that 3rd phase will have to be addressed through the PD process, the rezone process, as well as a development agreement with the city for things like access and time frames, who's responsible for what and for improvements. So everything for the previous PD rezones have been met. We're looking for the next phase to come forward to us for the phase 3.
Okay, so a traffic study, I guess, was completed in 2016, or?
Not aware of a traffic study being a requirement as part of that, and there's no traffic study that I'm aware of from 2016.
Okay.
I think back, and I may be incorrect, but I think back that, and this project, this development's been on the books since 2000, I think it is. So about 23 years. At some point in time, there were traffic studies and things done to develop this property, but they were way back when. Looking to the future and considering the density that was set forth at that time. Mr. Lair?
So I guess just going along with that, so looking beyond this, what's in front of us now, it wouldn't be unreasonable to expect that a fresh traffic study would be a requirement of any future plan development.
That was something that may be included in development agreement, negotiations between the city and the potential developer. That could be something that is part of that. At this point, we're looking at working with the developer, trying to come up with some ideas about how to address the future phases, and we're looking for a future plan from them for phase 3 on the project.
Mr. Tuneman?
Just to clarify what Luke's saying, in 2003, there was a traffic study done, and that's when the original 697 lots came to fruition, was in 2003. So that's when the traffic study was done. And then, yes, moving forward, anything above the 697, which we're calling phase 3, the west side properties, yes, we would go through this preliminary plat process, a final plat process, work with the developer and let them know that, yes, we need traffic studies. The second access is desired. That's when that type of stuff will be discussed.
Thank you, Mr. Tuneman. Mr. Diaz?
Mr. Tuneman, when that 697, excuse me, was approved, was that and the traffic study in 2003, was that based on the results of that study? Was it saying that they were going to put in a different bypass, another egress?
No, that was not part of it. There's been mention of a secondary emergency access. I believe that's what kind of came of that study. Kind of reading back through the history, that was a requirement of the fire department. We need a second access. So state land was required for that secondary access. I think that's the only thing that came of that traffic study related to any type of secondary access.
Okay, can we go back, Luke, and would you please state, can we go back to the map where it had the plots? Right there. So, and I mentioned 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. I just want to make sure I'm clear on this. So once those are developed, that's going to be a total of 697 units?
No.
Okay, so I want to get clarification because it's on the record. Is the developer that's here now or another developer that's not in the room, has there been sewage already been put in this?
No, nothing's been done except the mass grading at risk.
I don't think so. I want to just verify that.
Let me clarify that.
I think there's been some
So we were notified by a citizen that there was infrastructure installed up there. So right now they only have an at-risk grading permit. We did get a call and some pictures that showed some infrastructure installed up there. So we did an investigation and determined that, yes, there was a storm drain installed without inspection. So
News to me.
We went through the code enforcement. We went through the code enforcement process, issued a violation for basically constructing without a permit, gave them a time frame. They have since submitted for the final plat for this piece of property, which includes the design and construction of that storm drain system, the water and sewer for that community. So that's currently under review by staff. Seeming how that was done without a permit, that part of that permit will be double feed. That's how that is handled.
That's where the red flag kind of comes up on my part, where I see this we're going to down the road be up here and we're going to be way over this 697. We're going to be in this range where we're talking about 800. And so
we would have to, we can't go above the 697 lots without coming back to the commission and to the council.
I'm just thinking about yes, I agree with you. Right.
So by approving this today, they have to stick to that. That's what they have to do. By approving this today, that's what they have to do. Now, if they have other plans and not to do that, they have to come back through this process.
Correct.
So what you're doing today is approving that plan right there.
So basically what they're doing, they're hedging their bet and going with smaller lots on this parcel that they're asking for today and filling up the 697. They're using all of the allotment on these smaller parcels, betting on the future that they're going to get all of these other smaller parcels down the road. And what Jeff just said, Mr. Tuneman just said, is if they get this approved today, they have to stick with these smaller parcels and not develop larger parcels, which was the original intent. Maybe not necessarily by this developer, but by the original developer of the project.
Correct. And this is RE, so these aren't technically small lots. This is the residential estate. So this is 15, and Luke can correct me if I'm wrong, but these are 15,000 square foot minimum pads, 10-foot side yard setbacks, 25 front, 20 rear. So this is what you see, we'll call it the golf course area type lot. That's what they are proposing today. No exceptions to that RE zoning.
So should this get approved and they go forward and develop this, sell all of these properties and get denied down the road, that's all they can do. The rest of that land is not going to be able to be subdivided.
They have 20, is it 22? There's so many numbers flying around anymore, but to get to the 697, this is the 68. The remaining, they can come back with another preliminary plat and final plat for an additional 22, the same way they're coming forward today.
Exactly.
And then from there.
And that would fill up that would take all of the 697 lots that are in play. That would be it. Done.
That would be it. And then we would have to come back to the commission and council for any additional. It'd be either they could do it two different ways, a PD amendment to the existing foothills or come in for their own standalone PD rezone amendment for that piece.
And at that time, that's when all of your concerns need to be voiced. We understand and we appreciate your concerns today, but it really doesn't have anything to do with these lots that are here.
And the city council, the commission, we've all heard these voices. This preliminary plat has been worked on with the developer to show in the preliminary plat review, we have a wash crossing there to the northeast, Luke, right there. That's a wash crossing. Well, it's 84 feet in width and it narrows down to 60 foot. Well, 84 feet is a boulevard. So staff had some concerns about, well, how are you, a secondary access in your future phase is a desirable thing of the community and the city staff and city council and commission. So how are we would be looking for a boulevard type width, which is a city standard. So we met with the developer and said, well, how are you going to send that through your entire development? And they took those concerns and came back, and that's when they brought in a secondary box culvert that will go over the wash. That's going to be 84 feet in width. It kind of does a little curve over to the state property line there. And they are currently working with the state to try to get a right of way with the state through state land to get somewhere over to the Bison, Lodestar area over there.
Yeah, Zoo, Fortune, one of those streets.
Somewhere over there, yeah. So that's We worked with the developer based off of all the comments we were hearing from the community and everyone and said, well, what does this look like? And they said, this is how we plan to get the second exit is down on this lower end of the development. So we have that, and if it's hard to read, but there is a statement that they actually put on the preliminary plat that states something to what I'm trying to discuss right now. Yeah, there we go. So Camino Los Rambos will be an all-weather crossing and will provide direct connection to existing city right-of-way in the Lodestar Drive area. This is how staff felt comfortable moving forward with this process with an understanding that this is the possibility that we will go through when we go through that PD amendment.
Question?
Ms. Wilson.
Was this entire parcel in the original 697 entitlement for homes?
The 640 acres overall for Havasu Foothills Estates is the area of Havasu Foothills Estates. So we're taking that 697 lots could be in that entire area, somewhere in that 640 acres.
Thank you.
Any other questions of staff? That includes Mr. Tuneman. My commissioners. Okay, thank you, Mr. Tuneman. Any other questions? We are at the table for discussion and/or a motion. Keep in mind, we are just, and Mr. Morris, would you go back to the total plat? There you go, the plat map. We are only considering the lots of 1, 2, and tracks 1, 2, and 3, where you can see the cursor jumping up and down there. That's all we're considering today. And in my opinion, that's a gamble on the developer's part that he's thinking he might get those others down the road and sacrificing larger lots for these smaller lots, higher density.
Chairman, it's also
Mr. Diaz.
It's also a gamble. I like your language. It's also a gamble to start doing infrastructure if it's something that's a gamble. You know, it's money you're spending, like, might not ever get approved.
That's up to them.
That is a gamble. So this is a comment.
So we are
Mr.
only.
Harris? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Did somebody call me? Ms. Wilson.
I'd like to make a motion. I move to approve Land Use Action 233650, a preliminary subdivision plat for Trinity at Havasu Foothills Estates, tracks 2391, 2411, and 2412, located at 6000 Cherry Tree Boulevard, APNs 113011034 and 113010044, creating a 68 residential lots in Residential Estates Plan Development District.
Do we have a second?
I second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Wilson, a second by Mr. Mitchell, to approve Land Use Action 23-3650 with staff's recommendations. Any further discussion? And I just want to make clarification. This is strictly for this portion and this amount of lots. Should they need to come back or they want to change or modify, they're stuck with these. They have to come back through the process again. Just for clarification. Any further discussion on this motion? Let's call for the question.
Mr. Diaz?
Yes.
Ms. DeZero?
Yes.
Mr. Lair?
Yes.
Ms. Medley?
Yes.
Mrs. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Chairman Harris?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Good luck. All right, the next item on today's agenda is the call to the public. This is the portion where anybody can come and speak to the commission about any item. We may not answer you, but you can address the commission and state concerns. Is there anybody that wishes to speak to the commission? Okay. You may come. This is call to the public, different portion of the meeting. Please understand, we cannot respond because it wasn't advertised.
Understood. Dawn Kirk again. Very quickly, I'm a little bit disappointed that you guys didn't connect the dots that I was trying to make. It's probably on my part. I probably didn't make it clear enough, but that whole section that Trinity has is Phase 3. On that map that I'm looking at, there is no land set aside for school. So when Mr. Morris said that they did complete all the requirements in the general plan, that is not true. As far as the parks, back in, very quickly, in 2006, hold on. No, I'm sorry, 2016, the school site was relocated to Phase 3, that phase, and the developer was allowed to build the park in we were supposed to get a park. And in 2016, the developer at that time was allowed to build the park in 2 phases based on the number of certificates of occupancy issued. That was never done. So again, that requirement of the park was not completed, Mr. Morris. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else that wishes to address the call to the public? Please state your name for the record.
Tom Boyd. I still have a question there about the previous proceedings. There was a comment that there was no second access ever discussed, only a fire access for the Foothills development. You know, at one time, there was a state right-of-way dedicated where Avienda de los Foothills is now. That was to be the bypass from essentially Sarah Park to the airport. If you ever been to Bullhead City, it was going to be about the same thing. In 2016, I believe the date was, that the city relinquished that right-of-way, basically saying that the previous planning for circulation in that area is now void. And so, you know, basically the assumptions used for circulation in the entire Foothills development, including this, is not valid anymore. So it really needs to be looked at. How do we get in and out? Or we're going to end up being the island. We're going to end up, oh yeah, there's a second access plan, but nobody's ever built the bridge. There's no political will in City Hall. There's no political will in Phoenix to build the bridge. There's going to be no political will in Havasu to build a second access to the Foothills. And this concept that Lodestar or any other street up there is going to happen, it won't. It's the tea leaves are easy to read. It's just not going to happen. The developer is going to walk in and say, we tried, the state won't give us the right of way, and we're stuck. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Please state your name for the record.
Roger Wickline. Mr. Harris, I disagree with your analysis of you're not having a conflict of interest. As a home builder in the area, I don't know how many homes you've built in the Foothills. You may not have a financial interest in this particular property at this time, but if anybody purchases a lot there and hires you to build them a home, you have a financial interest in that. By approving this project, you seem to be able to benefit financially, and you can shake your head all you want.
No, I don't. I'm sorry.
Well, I think other people see different.
Anybody else wish to speak to the call to the public? All right, Mr. Morris, future meetings.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. The meeting scheduled for March 1st has been canceled. We have no items for that date. The next regular meeting will be March 15th. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. We stand adjourned. Oh, I'm sorry. What did I miss?
No,
I'm sorry. We were going to do future discussion items. Mr. Diaz.
Ms. Geary, now is the time.
Yes, let me recap a little bit from last night before you make a motion, because I don't think it's necessary, but you certainly may if you want to after I finish updating. So last night there was a request by council during their future agenda items to discuss parking requirements. I haven't gone back and listened yet. Staff hasn't any time to digest that or discuss how we're going to do that. So I can't give you any specific plans or any additional information, but through our discussions last night with council, I think we ended up that we'd like to bring it to the Planning and Zoning Commission first, let you digest it, make any recommendations if you want to make recommendations for changes to parking requirements, and then we'll take that to council through what would be more of a normal process instead of taking it to council, bringing it to the commission, and taking it back to council. So we believe that is the path that we got last night, or the direction that we got last night. So that will be forthcoming to you in the very near future.
So maybe no need to make a motion on
I don't
that right
believe
now.
there's any
Oh,
need
okay.
to make a motion.
No, it's
We're going to bring it to you whether you motion or not, but if you feel that you'd like to,
No, I feel comfortable.
Okay.
with that. I appreciate that.
I guess I'm just a little confused because we were talking traffic study. Traffic study is not just parking.
Yeah, I
If
don't
this
know-
is just a parking thing, I
I don't
also
know where
want
parking
traffic
came
study.
in the discussion of the last item, and there was there was a comment about the city following state standards for parking, which is completely not true. We have our own parking requirements by our city code that have been amended throughout time to specifically fit our community and whatever the needs and desires are at that
Well-
time. And so as far as the traffic study, I believe that was discussed, and that is something that occurs through the development agreement process. And so,
Is that right?
Mr. Chairman, if I may also.
Mr. Morris.
elaborate on what Kelly, Ms. Gary is saying. As I recall, the meeting last night, that talking about high-density residential and looking at the parking standards for high-density residential and examining those. And as far as traffic studies, I don't think that was the intention of anything from last night's meeting. They just want to look at what the parking standards are for the higher density residential type uses. And
and I agree, Mr. Morris, you're correct. But we have had many discussions at this table when it comes to certain high-density development that we're talking about. When we talk about parking always comes up. So I think we should look at that.
that's what we're bringing back.
What
So
you're
I don't
gonna
want to talk
do.
about it anymore. So
Yeah.
we're going to bring that back to you. So
Okay.
it's not on the agenda. We really can't talk about it anymore, other than the fact we are going to bring it back for a future agenda item. As far as parking or traffic studies, that wouldn't be a part of necessarily that discussion there.
Well, what I'm looking for is if we could make it a requirement that if they come back and want to do this additional portion, that we can make it I don't know how we do that, make it a requirement that there's a traffic study, an up-to-date 2023, 24, whenever they do it, traffic study on that area, taking into account the 697 that was already approved, plus what they're planning on, so that we have some information on that issue.
I think we're talking about two separate things right now. We're talking about a discussion item for high-density residential parking standards. And we're also talking about traffic studies. And we'd anticipate with the third phase, with more than 697 in the foothills, that traffic would be looked at as part of that also.
Okay. Any further future discussion items? All right, we now stand adjourned.